Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of the priestesses of ancient Rome, you might imagine serene, ethereal women in flowing white robes, gliding through marble temples, holding immense spiritual power and the deep respect of an empire. They are often depicted as symbols of purity and grace, untouchable figures who willingly chose a life of devotion. But peel back that romanticized layer, and you find a much starker reality. The truth is that this was a life of extreme pressure, rigid discipline, and terrifying consequences, often thrust upon a girl who was little more than a child. Frankly, given the rules, the risks, and the complete lack of personal freedom, you probably wouldn't last a day as a Roman Vestal virgin. So, as we settle in, let me know in the comments where you're listening from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's always a quiet pleasure to see how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world, for now, is small and safe. You are 6 years old, and your universe is contained within the walls of your family's home, a modest but comfortable dwelling in a respectable part of the city. Your days are a predictable rhythm of simple comforts. You wake to the low murmur of your parents' voices in the next room, and the distant, rhythmic sound of a blacksmith's hammer already at work somewhere in the neighborhood. The air tastes of sleep and smells faintly of wood smoke from the hearth that was banked the night before. Your breakfast is a warm bowl of porridge, simple and filling, sometimes sweetened with a drizzle of honey if it has been a good week. The tunic you wear is made of coarse, undyed wool, a little scratchy against your skin, but it is familiar, the scent of it woven with the smells of your home, of baking bread, of your mother's lavender-scented oil, of the dust that dances in the sunbeams slanting through the high window. You have a doll, carved from a piece of scrap wood by your father, its face smoothed by your constant touch. You have your younger brother, whose laughter is a bright, sudden sound in the quiet courtyard. Your life is this collection of small, tangible things. The cool, smooth stones of the floor beneath your bare feet, the warmth of your mother's hand as she guides you through a weaving lesson, the weight of your father's arm around your shoulders as he tells you a story of the city's founding. It is a life you understand, a life you assume will stretch on and on, unfolding in the same gentle way it always has. You expect to grow, to learn the duties of a Roman wife, to one day have a small, safe world of your own. But today is different. There is a tension in the air, a quiet hum of anxiety that you can feel more than hear. Your mother's hands, usually so steady at the loom, tremble slightly. She has dressed you in your finest tunic, a newer one that is softer and whiter than your everyday clothes. She has spent an unusual amount of time combing your hair, her fingers lingering as she plaits it into a neat, tight braid. Your father's voice is lower than usual, his brow furrowed as he paces the main room. They speak in hushed tones, words you cannot quite catch, but you recognize the name of the chief priest, the Pontifex Maximus, repeated like a somber prayer. You know he is the most important religious figure in Rome, a man with power that touches both the gods and the emperor. The idea that he might have any interest in your family is both thrilling and deeply unsettling. You are told to be on your best behavior, to be quiet, to be still. It feels as if the entire household is holding its breath. The usual street sounds seem muffled, distant, as if your home has become a bubble of silent anticipation. When the sound of a formal knock echoes from the front door, your mother flinches, and your father visibly straightens his shoulders, composing his face into a mask of solemn respect. The man who enters is even more imposing than the stories you have heard. The Pontifex Maximus is not just a man. He is an institution, draped in layers of immaculate white wool edged with purple, the color of power. He carries an air of immense gravity, his presence seeming to suck the warmth from the room. He moves with a slow, deliberate grace that is almost unnerving. His eyes, dark and assessing, sweep over the room, over your parents' nervous faces, and finally they land on you. You stand frozen, your wooden doll clutched in one hand. This is not like meeting a senator at the market or seeing a general in a parade. This feels different. This feels final. Historians still argue about the precise criteria for selection, whether it was pure chance, divine will, or a complex calculation of a family's political standing and reputation. But in this moment, all you know is that this powerful man is looking at you, and the way he is looking makes the air in your lungs feel thin and cold. Your parents had to be free-born citizens, still living, and you had to be free of any physical blemish or speech impediment. It is a strange and chilling honor to be so perfectly, flawlessly suitable for a fate you do not comprehend. He speaks to your father, his voice calm and resonant, a sound that seems too large for your small home. He does not ask. He informs. Your name was one of 20 drawn by lot. Of those 20, you have been chosen. Your family is being granted a great honor, he says, though the look on your mother's face is not one of joy, but of a deep, hollowed-out sorrow she is trying desperately to conceal. She has lost a daughter today, not to sickness or accident, but to the gods. The chief priest then turns to you and takes a step forward. He extends his hand. You are meant to take it. You look to your mother, but her eyes are glassy with unshed tears, and she gives a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. Your father places a hand on your back, a gentle but firm pressure. Go. You release your doll. It makes a soft clatter on the stone floor. You place your small hand into the priest's much larger one. His skin is dry and cool. He holds your hand firmly and begins to speak the ancient, binding words. I take you, Amata, he says, using a ritual name, as a priestess of Vesta, who will perform the sacred rites which it is the law for a priestess to perform on behalf of the Roman people. He is not asking your permission. He is claiming you. The formula is a capture, a form of religious acquisition. You have just been conscripted into the service of a goddess. You will not come home for dinner. You will not sleep in your bed tonight. You will not see your little brother tomorrow. You are being taken from this small, safe world, and you will not be returned for 30 years. As he leads you toward the door, you look back at your parents, who seem to be shrinking, becoming smaller and farther away with every step. The life you knew is over. You are 7 years old, and you now belong to Rome. The walk through the city is a blur. The hand of the chief priest holding yours is a firm, unyielding anchor in a swirling sea of sensations. You are used to the streets of Rome, but you have never experienced them like this. Usually, you are a part of their chaos, a small, insignificant figure dodging carts and weaving through crowds. Now, a space clears around you. People see the priest's purple-bordered toga and they fall back, their expressions a mixture of awe, reverence, and a faint, pitying curiosity as they look at you. The sounds of the city are sharper now. The rumble of iron-shod wheels on stone, the shouts of vendors selling everything from figs to fried fish, the babble of a dozen conversations hitting your ears at once. The air is thick with the city's signature perfume, a complex blend of wood smoke, baking bread, sweat, cheap wine, and the ever-present, acrid undertone of the sewers. It is the smell of life, a smell you suddenly realize you are leaving behind. You are led into the very heart of the city, the Roman Forum. This is not the familiar market square where your mother buys groceries. This is the monumental core of an empire. Your head tilts back as you try to take in the scale of the buildings. Columns soar towards the sky, their marble faces gleaming in the afternoon sun. Grand basilicas and temples, decorated with statues of gods and heroes, loom over you, each one a testament to Rome's power and piety. It is designed to make a person feel small, and it succeeds completely. Your destination is a complex of buildings tucked beside the Temple of Vesta at the base of the Palatine Hill. This is the Atrium Vestae, the house of the Vestals. From the outside, it is impressive, its walls tall and imposing, promising sanctuary and separation from the clamor of the Forum. But as you pass through the formal entryway, the sheer grandeur of the place takes your breath away and replaces it with a cold stone of dread. You find yourself in a vast, rectangular courtyard, open to the sky. It is surrounded by a two-story portico, its roof held up by dozens of elegant columns. A pair of long, rectangular pools of clear water runs down the center of the manicured garden, reflecting the blue sky and the severe lines of the architecture. It is breathtakingly beautiful, but it is a cold, formal beauty. There is no clutter, no imperfection, no sign of the messy reality of daily life you are used to. It is less a home and more a museum. Around the courtyard, spaced between the columns, are statues. They are marble figures of women in the same draped robes, their faces serene and severe, their eyes seeming to follow you as you are led across the polished stone. These, you will learn, are the chief Vestals of generations past, immortalized in stone as a permanent reminder of the ideal you must now embody. There's no warm, welcoming committee, just a silent jury of your predecessors. The chief priest finally stops. He has brought you to an older woman whose face is a roadmap of fine lines, her posture ramrod straight. She wears the same white robes as the statues, and her authority is as palpable and unquestionable as the priest's. This is the Virgo Vestalis Maxima, the chief Vestal, your new mother, teacher, and warden. The priest speaks to her in low, formal tones, officially transferring you into her care. Your hand is passed from his to hers. Her skin is surprisingly soft, but her grip is just as strong. She leads you away from the grand courtyard, down a corridor whose cool, echoing silence is a stark contrast to the noise of the city you just left. The air here smells different, clean and sterile, scented with incense and old stone. The sound of your small sandals on the mosaic floor is loud in the quiet. Archaeologists continue to piece together the daily life within these walls from the ruins, but for you, it is a living, breathing reality. Your new home is a labyrinth of rooms, kitchens, a communal dining hall, a mill for grinding sacred flour, storerooms, and sleeping quarters. It is a self-contained world, a city within a city. Your room is on the upper floor. It is larger than the space you shared with your brother and far more luxurious. The walls are smoothly plastered and perhaps even painted with a simple design. There is a proper bed frame, not just a mattress on the floor, and a small wooden chest for your belongings. Except you have no belongings. The fine tunic you are wearing is now your only possession. Everything that made up your life, your wooden doll, the blanket your grandmother wove, the chipped cup you always used, is gone. It is a gilded cage, and you are just beginning to feel the coldness of the bars. There's no one to complain to, no customer service line to call about your missing personal effects. The service agreement is for 30 years and it is non-negotiable. The chief Vestal speaks to you for the first time. Her voice is not unkind, but it is devoid of warmth. She explains that for the next 10 years, you are a novice. You will learn. You will obey. You will forget your old life and embrace your new one. She tells you that your old name is gone, and you will be known by the ritual name given to you by the priest. You are now a vessel for the goddess, and a vessel must be empty before it can be filled. She leaves you, closing the heavy wooden door behind her, the sound of the latch settling into place echoing in the room. You are alone. You walk to the high, grilled window and look out. You cannot see the street, only a view of the temple roof and a sliver of the Palatine Hill. The sounds of the Forum are a distant, muted roar. For a moment you stand perfectly still, absorbing the enormity of what has happened. The tears you have held back since you left your home finally come, hot and silent. You do not sob or make a sound because some instinct tells you that even here alone, you are being watched. You cry for your mother's hand, for your father's stories, for your brother's laugh, for the familiar scratch of your old woolen tunic. You cry for the little girl who dropped her doll on the floor of a home she will never see again. But as the last of the tears subside, something else begins to settle in your chest. It is not acceptance, not yet. It is the hard, cold seed of resolve. This is your reality now. This grand, silent, beautiful prison is your world. You have been chosen, and while you did not choose this life, you are here. Wiping your wet cheeks with the back of your hand, you turn from the window and face the empty room. You have survived your first few hours. Only 30 years to go. The next morning begins before sunrise. There is no gentle awakening to the smell of your mother's baking or the slow creep of dawn. Instead, the heavy silence of your new life is broken by a precise, rhythmic sound from the corridor, a small bell being rung. It is the signal to rise, a sound that will dictate the pace of your days for the next 3 decades. There is no snooze button on this alarm clock. You quickly learn that your first 10 years as a Vestal are, in essence, a rigorous and unyielding apprenticeship. The title of priestess is not granted. It is earned through a decade of grueling education. Your teachers are the senior Vestals, women who have completed their own 30 years of service and have chosen to remain within the cloister as mentors. They are stern, patient, and possess an encyclopedic knowledge of the sacred duties you must now master. They are the living memory of the order, and their task is to pour that memory into you. Your first lessons are in memorization. The core of your duty revolves around rituals that must be performed perfectly, without a single misspoken word or incorrect gesture. You are given long, ancient hymns to learn, their language archaic, and filled with words no longer used in the streets of Rome. You chant them for hours, your voice joining the low drone of the other novices in a dedicated classroom. The senior Vestal walks among you, her ears tuned to any mistake. A single error earns a sharp correction. Repeat the error and you might feel the sting of a light switch on your palms. It is not cruelty for its own sake. It is a lesson in the importance of perfection. The gods, you are taught, do not appreciate sloppiness. The texts you study are not just hymns. You must learn the intricate laws governing the priesthood, the history of the order, and the complex Roman religious calendar with its endless cycle of festivals and obligations. Historians debate how literate most Roman women were, but for you, literacy is not a choice. It is a fundamental tool of your trade. You learn to read and write, practicing your letters on wax tablets, the stylus feeling clumsy in your small hand. You trace the forms of the letters over and over, scraping the wax smooth to begin again. The sheer volume of information is overwhelming. A mountain of tradition you are expected to climb one small, painful step at a time. Alongside the intellectual labor is the physical. You are taught the practical skills of running the household of a goddess. You learn how to properly clean the sacred implements used in rituals, the silver dishes, the bronze tools, polishing them until they gleam. You learn to weave, not for making everyday clothes, but for creating the special ceremonial textiles required for certain festivals, your small fingers struggling with the complex patterns on the large looms. One of your most important early lessons is how to prepare the mola salsa, or salted flour. This is not ordinary flour. It is made from the first ears of spelt wheat harvested each spring, ground by hand in the sacred mill located within the house of the Vestals. You take turns with the other novices, pushing the heavy millstone, your arms and shoulders aching with the effort. The process is slow and laborious. The gritty sound of stone grinding against stone becomes a familiar part of your soundscape. Once ground, the flour is mixed with salt that has been pounded into a fine powder. This sacred substance will be sprinkled on the heads of sacrificial animals and used in other key rituals. The preparation is as much a part of the ritual as its final use. Every step is precise, every measurement exact. The bread in your old life might have been gritty with sand from a commercial millstone, but this flour is gritty with purpose, with the weight of tradition. Your life is stripped of all frivolity. The games you played with your brother are a distant memory. The idle chatter of childhood is replaced by the focused drone of recitation. Your day is divided into strict blocks of time for study, for labor, for ritual, and for meals. The food is simple but plentiful, far better than what most Romans eat, but it is consumed in near silence in the communal dining hall. The only conversations permitted are on religious or practical matters. There is no gossip, no complaining, no sharing of personal feelings. Your emotions, like your old name, are expected to be put aside. You are not alone in this struggle. There are 5 other novices in various stages of their first decade of training. You see them every day, their faces reflecting the same mixture of exhaustion, concentration, and underlying fear that you feel. A silent camaraderie develops between you. A shared glance across the dining hall can convey a world of understanding. A quiet, encouraging nod from an older girl as you struggle with a particularly difficult passage of a hymn is a small drop of water in a vast desert of discipline. These small connections become your new form of family, a fragile support system within the rigid structure of the institution. The senior Vestals are not without a sliver of humanity. On rare occasions, one might share a story of her own time as a novice, a brief anecdote that reveals she, too, was once a scared, clumsy child. These moments are rare treasures, reminders that the imposing figures of authority were once just like you. But they are fleeting. The primary relationship is one of student and teacher, and the curriculum is daunting. Slowly, painstakingly, you begin to change. The archaic words of the hymn start to feel less alien on your tongue. Your hands grow stronger and more skilled at their tasks. The complex web of rules and rituals begins to form a coherent pattern in your mind. You are being reshaped. Your identity as a daughter and a sister scraped away like old wax from a tablet, and a new identity as a priestess is being inscribed in its place. The process is painful and relentless, a complete demolition of the self you knew. But deep within the loneliness and the rigor, you begin to grasp the immense significance of what you are learning. You are not just memorizing prayers. You are becoming a guardian of Rome's spiritual heart, a living link in a chain stretching back to the city's mythical origins. It is a terrifying burden, but as your first year bleeds into your second, you begin to feel its weight settle upon you not just as a cage, but as a mantle. After a decade of relentless training, you are no longer a novice. You are now a full priestess of Vesta. The transition is not marked by a grand ceremony, but by a gradual shift in your responsibilities. You are no longer primarily a student. You are now a practitioner. And at the heart of your practice is the single most important duty of the Vestal Order, a task so critical that the fate of Rome itself is said to depend on it: tending the sacred fire. The Temple of Vesta, a small, circular building in the Forum, is the spiritual center of your world. It is not a temple in the usual sense. There is no massive statue of the goddess within. Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, home, and family, is not represented by an image but by a living flame, an eternal fire that must never, ever be allowed to go out. This fire is the symbolic heart of Rome. As long as it burns, the city will stand. If it is extinguished, it is considered a terrifying omen, a sign that the goddess has withdrawn her protection and that Rome is vulnerable to disaster. Your duty is to ensure that this never happens. The fire burns day and night in the temple's inner sanctum, a place forbidden to all men except the Pontifex Maximus. You and your sister priestesses work in shifts, watching over it in pairs. The schedule is unforgiving. Whether it is the middle of a sweltering summer afternoon or the deepest, coldest hour of a winter night, the fire must be attended. The first time you take your watch is a moment of profound and terrifying significance. You walk from the atrium into the temple, the familiar sounds of the forum fading behind you, replaced by the hushed sanctity of the space. The air inside is warm and smells of olive oil, ancient stone, and something else. A clean, pure scent that seems to cling to the very walls. In the center of the chamber, on a stone hearth, the flame dances. It is not a roaring blaze, but a steady, deliberate fire, its light casting flickering shadows on the curved walls. Your partner for the watch is a more experienced Vestal, a woman in her late 20s who moves with a calm, practiced efficiency. She shows you how to trim the wick of the lamp, how to add the specially prepared, consecrated olive oil, and how to gently clear away any ash. The tools you use are ancient and sacred in their own right. Every movement is a ritual, every action imbued with centuries of tradition. There is no room for improvisation. There is a right way to do things, and any deviation is a potential offense to the goddess. The hours of the watch stretch out in a profound silence, broken only by the soft hiss and flicker of the flame itself. It becomes a form of meditation. Your entire focus narrows to this single point of light. You watch its every movement, its every subtle change in color and intensity. It feels alive, a divine presence in the room with you. The responsibility is immense, a physical weight on your shoulders. If you were to doze off, if your attention were to wander for even a moment, the consequences would be unthinkable. The punishment for allowing the fire to go out is severe. The negligent Vestal would be taken to a dark, windowless room and scourged by the Pontifex Maximus. It is a punishment for a catastrophic failure, a personal betrayal of the entire city. The fire would then have to be rekindled, not with a spark from another flame, but through the laborious, primitive method of rubbing two sticks together until friction produces a spark. This act in itself is a ritual of purification and renewal, a desperate attempt to win back the goddess's favor after such a terrible lapse. The shame of being the one responsible would be a stain that could never be washed away. So you do not sleep. You do not let your mind wander to memories of your past life or dreams of a future one. You are entirely present, your senses dedicated to the flame. You learn to read its language. A slight waver might indicate a draft. A change in the color of the flame might mean the oil needs to be replenished. You become exquisitely sensitive to the delicate balance required to keep it alive. This is not like a modern pilot light that you can forget about. It's a demanding, high-stakes celestial pet that needs constant, vigilant care. This relentless duty shapes you. It instills a level of discipline and focus you never knew you were capable of. It is a burden, yes, but it is also the source of your power and your identity. When people in the forum look at you, they see a guardian of Rome's soul. They see the woman who keeps the city safe while they sleep. This duty is the very essence of your existence. The fire is not your only responsibility within the temple. Behind a heavy curtain, in the innermost sanctum known as the Atrium Vestae, are stored sacred objects of immense importance. Their exact nature is one of the most closely guarded secrets in Rome, known only to the Vestals and the Pontifex Maximus. Historians speculate they may have included the Palladium, a mythical statue of Pallas Athena said to have been rescued from the burning city of Troy by Aeneas, the legendary founder of the Roman people. Whatever these objects are, they are believed to be talismans, physical anchors of Rome's destiny. You are their guardian. Your duty is to protect them, to ensure they are never seen by profane eyes, and to perform the secret rituals associated with them. This dual responsibility, tending the eternal flame and guarding the sacred relics, places you at the absolute center of Roman religious life. You are no longer just a priestess. You are a living pillar of the state. The constant, nerve-wracking pressure is a crucible that burns away the last remnants of the child you were. In its place is a woman made of discipline, duty, and a profound, unshakable understanding of the consequences of failure. Day after day, night after night, you keep the watch. You feed the flame. You are the reason Rome's heart continues to beat. And you know with a certainty that is both terrifying and exhilarating that you must not, under any circumstances, let it stop. As you settle into the rhythms of your second decade of service, the abstract concept of your vow of chastity becomes a tangible, daily reality. When you were taken as a 6-year-old, the promise made on your behalf was a string of incomprehensible words. Now, as a young woman, you understand its full weight. For 30 years, from the age of roughly 7 to 37, you are sworn to absolute purity. You are, in essence, married to the state, and the goddess Vesta is a famously jealous guardian. This vow is the cornerstone of your existence, the source of both your sacred power and your profound isolation. Your purity is believed to be directly linked to the health and safety of Rome. A chaste Vestal ensures the integrity of the state's relationship with the gods. Her body is a sacred vessel, and its purity guarantees the efficacy of the rituals she performs. Any violation of this vow is not merely a personal failing. It is an act of treason against the Roman people, a pollution of the city's spiritual foundations. The pressure to maintain this purity is immense and multifaceted. It begins with your physical appearance. Your clothing is designed to de-emphasize your physical form. You wear several layers of simple, white woolen garments. Your hair, a feature often associated with feminine allure in the Roman world, is elaborately and severely styled in a manner unique to the Vestals. The sine crines, an archaic six-stressed hairstyle that signifies your consecrated status. It is a long and tedious process to arrange it each day, another ritual that reinforces your separation from ordinary women. You are not meant to be attractive in a conventional sense. You are meant to be an icon, a symbol of untouchable sanctity. Your life within the Atrium Vestae is structured to minimize any potential for temptation. Contact with men is strictly limited. While the Pontifex Maximus can enter your home and the temple, other men are largely forbidden from the private areas of the complex. When you must interact with men for official reasons, senators delivering documents for safekeeping, for example, it is done in a formal, public setting, always in the presence of other Vestals. There are no private conversations, no lingering glances, no opportunities for the kind of casual familiarity that might lead to a bond. This isolation creates a strange and paradoxical existence. You live in the very heart of Rome, a city teeming with life, yet you are fundamentally separate from it. From the windows of the atrium, you can hear the sounds of families, of lovers quarreling and laughing, of children playing. These are the sounds of the life you were meant to have, the life that was taken from you. It is a constant, quiet reminder of what you have sacrificed. There is no swiping through dating apps, no awkward first dates, just the cold, hard certainty that romance is a country you are permanently barred from visiting. The psychological toll of this enforced chastity is something you must bear in silence. There is no one to confide in, no one to share your feelings of loneliness or curiosity with. To even speak of such things would be dangerous, a potential sign of wavering commitment. You and your 5 sister priestesses live in a state of shared, unspoken tension. You are comrades in duty, but the intense scrutiny you are all under can also breed suspicion. A friendly conversation could be misconstrued. A moment of private sadness could be interpreted as discontent. You learn to maintain a placid, serene exterior, no matter what turmoil you might feel inside. The vow is not just about physical abstinence. It demands a purity of thought and spirit. You are expected to be focused on your sacred duties, your mind free from worldly distractions. This requires a constant state of mental discipline. When your mind wanders, you must pull it back. When feelings of resentment or longing surface, you must suppress them. It is an ongoing, internal battle to keep your inner world as clean and ordered as the sacred temple. The danger of failure is never far from your thoughts. The consequences of breaking your vow are the most horrific punishment imaginable in Roman society, a subject we will return to later in more detail. But the whisper of it is always present. This isn't a simple "you're fired" situation. The stakes are your life, and the method of your potential death is a unique form of horror. This ever-present threat is a powerful deterrent, a ghost that haunts the quiet corridors of the atrium. Despite the profound loneliness, your status as a Vestal is not without a strange kind of intimacy. Your bond with the goddess Vesta is meant to be your primary relationship. In the silent hours of the night watch, as you tend her eternal flame, you are in communion with the divine. The fire becomes your confidant, its steady warmth a substitute for human affection. You pour your devotion, your focus, and your life force into it. This mystical connection is the spiritual reward for your sacrifice, the core of your sacred identity. You are not a prisoner in the conventional sense. You are a priestess, a figure of immense public reverence. But you are caged nonetheless, caged by your vows, by the expectations of an entire empire, and by the constant, terrifying need to be perfect. The burden of purity is a heavy cloak you wear every moment of every day. It separates you, it isolates you, and it defines you. It is the price you pay for your unique and powerful role in the world, a price that was decided for you when you were just a child, and which you must now spend your entire adult life paying. While your life is one of immense restriction and sacrifice, it is not without its own unique and significant rewards. As you mature into your role, you begin to understand that the chains of duty are interwoven with threads of extraordinary privilege. In a society where most women, particularly those of the upper classes, were under the lifelong legal authority of a father or a husband, you are a remarkable exception. Upon taking your vows, you are immediately freed from the patria potestas, the power of the father. You are legally your own woman. This is a status almost unheard of for other women in Rome. You can own property, inherit wealth, and write your own will without the consent of a male guardian. While your life is cloistered, your legal and financial autonomy is greater than that of almost any matron in the city. The state provides for all your needs within the Atrium Vestae, and you receive a generous stipend, making you an independently wealthy woman. There's a deep irony in your situation. You have the financial freedom that many Roman men would envy, but your life is so circumscribed that there is very little to spend it on. You can't just decide to renovate your room or buy a vacation villa by the sea. Your privileges extend far beyond the legal and financial. When you travel through the city, you do so in a covered litter, a light carriage carried by attendants. A lictor, a civil servant who acts as a bodyguard and symbol of official authority, walks before you, clearing a path through the crowded streets. All other traffic, even that of the highest magistrates, must give way to you. If a condemned criminal on their way to execution happens to cross your path, you have the power to grant them an immediate and absolute pardon. This isn't a mere suggestion, it's a binding act of clemency. Historians believe this power stemmed from the idea that a chance encounter with a sacred Vestal was a sign of divine intervention, an omen the state dared not ignore. At public games, festivals, and gladiatorial contests, you are given a place of honor, seated in a special section near the imperial family and the most powerful senators. Your presence at these events is not for entertainment. It is a vital part of the state's religious observance. You are there as official representatives of Rome's piety, your attendance sanctifying the proceedings. From your elevated seat, you watch the grand, often brutal spectacle of the arena, a world of noise, sweat, and blood so utterly alien to the quiet sanctity of your cloistered life. Perhaps the most significant of your privileges is the trust placed in you by the state. The House of the Vestals becomes a secure repository for the most sensitive documents in Rome. The wills of emperors and powerful senators, treaties with foreign powers, and other crucial state papers are entrusted to your care. In a city rife with political intrigue, where fortunes could be made or lost on a whispered rumor, the Atrium Vestae is considered the safest place in Rome, a neutral ground protected by divine sanction. No one would dare to violate its sanctity to steal a document. This makes you a passive but powerful player in the political life of the city. You are the guardian of secrets, the keeper of legacies. Senators with furrowed brows bring you their final testaments, their faces a mixture of respect and a kind of nervous awe. They know that their entire family's future rests within the walls you command. These privileges create a complex public persona. You are revered, almost worshipped as a living symbol of Rome. When you appear in public, people fall silent. They bow their heads. To assault a Vestal is a capital crime, punishable by death. To swear an oath in your presence is the most solemn and binding promise a Roman can make. You are both a person and an institution, a woman and an icon. However, this reverence comes at the cost of genuine human connection. People do not see you. They see the white robes, the severe hairstyle, the symbol of Vesta. They see a conduit to the divine, not a woman with her own thoughts, fears, and history. The lictor who clears your path and the crowds who part before you are not responding to you as an individual. They are responding to the sacred office you hold. It is a lonely kind of power, a veneration that builds a wall of holiness around you, just as surely as the stone walls of the atrium. You learn to navigate this strange duality. You inhabit the role, carrying yourself with the serene dignity expected of you. You exercise your authority with a quiet, firm grace. You understand that your privileges are not for your personal benefit, but are tools for the performance of your duty. They are practical necessities for the guardians of Rome's sacred heart. The legal autonomy, the right of way, the power to pardon. They are all part of the sacred package, designed to elevate you above the ordinary and protect you from the mundane world, the better to serve the divine one. And so you live, suspended between the constraints of a nun and the powers of a queen, a life of profound contradiction that no other person in the Roman world could ever truly understand. The grand privileges and terrifying responsibilities are the towering peaks and shadowed valleys of your life. But the terrain you walk every single day is one of routine. You come to learn that holiness for a Vestal is not found in dramatic moments of divine revelation, but in the endless, meticulous repetition of mundane tasks. Your life is a liturgy of ordinary actions made sacred by intent and tradition. The daily grind is the true substance of your devotion. A significant portion of your time is dedicated to a task that sounds simple, but is freighted with religious significance. Fetching water. This is not a matter of turning on a tap, or even using the cisterns within the atrium that provide water for washing and cleaning. The water used for sacred rituals, for the purification of the temple and the preparation of the mola salsa, must be drawn from a specific sacred spring, the fountain of Egeria. Egeria was a mythical water nymph who was the consort and advisor to Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome, the very king credited with establishing the Vestal order. Drawing water from her spring is an act of communion with the very origins of your priesthood. The spring is located outside the city walls, a journey of some distance. You do not make this trip alone, of course. Accompanied by attendants, you are carried in your litter, shielded from public view. But the task itself is yours. You must fill a special clay vessel, a feudal, which is designed with a small foot that prevents it from being set down. This is a deliberate, symbolic design. The water is considered so pure that it cannot be allowed to touch the ground or rest on any profane surface. You must carry the heavy, sloshing vessel all the way back to the temple, your arms aching from the strain. The awkward shape of the jar ensures you are constantly aware of its preciousness, a physical reminder of the purity you are tasked with protecting. There are no ergonomic studies or comfortable carrying straps, just the unforgiving reality of a pot designed to be a burden. Back within the walls of the atrium, the water is used for the daily purification of the temple. The floor is sprinkled and swept, The sacred implements are washed, and the space is ritually cleansed. This is not housework. It is an act of maintaining the sacred order of the cosmos on a miniature scale. You scrub and polish and sweep, not to impress guests, but to appease a goddess. The line between domestic chore and sacred rite is completely erased. Another recurring duty is the preparation of ritual foods. You've already mastered the art of making the salted flour, but there are other, less frequent, requirements for specific festivals. These recipes are ancient, their ingredients and methods dictated by religious law. You might find yourself baking special cakes of spelt and honey, their shapes and markings prescribed by tradition. The process is slow and deliberate, a form of active prayer. Your kitchen is a sacred space. Your measurements are a form of incantation, and the final product is an offering. This is not a creative culinary endeavor. There is no experimenting with new flavors or techniques. You are following a recipe that is hundreds of years old, replicating the actions of generations of Vestals before you. Your days are punctuated by these rituals of maintenance. Tending the fire is the most critical, but the supporting tasks are endless. Weaving ceremonial linens, maintaining the temple's lamps, preparing offerings for a dozen different gods on their specific feast days. It all falls to you and your 5 sisters. Your life becomes a predictable cycle, governed not by the sun, but by a complex calendar of sacred obligations. It's a relentless schedule that leaves little room for personal time or reflection. The sheer repetition could be mind-numbing, but you are taught to see it as a form of discipline. By performing these simple, repetitive actions with perfect focus and devotion, you are training your mind and spirit, purifying yourself for your sacred role. The daily grind is a path to holiness. It is a very different concept of spiritual fulfillment from the dramatic conversions or philosophical debates of other belief systems. It is a faith built on labor, on the quiet dignity of a job done perfectly, day after day after day. Historians can only speculate on the internal, psychological experience of this life, but it's easy to imagine that the routine could be both a comfort and a crushing weight, a source of stability and a form of endless imprisonment. In the quiet moments, as you scour a bronze bowl or carry the heavy water jar, you might find your mind drifting. You might remember the taste of the common bread from your childhood, the one that was gritty with sand from the millstone, and compare it to the sacred flour you now grind by hand. You might wonder what your brother looks like now, a grown man with a family of his own. These thoughts are fleeting, quickly pushed aside. Your focus must be on the task at hand. The bowl must be perfectly clean. The water must not be spilled. The routine is your shield against the distractions of a world you no longer belong to. It is the framework that holds your life together, and the foundation upon which the spiritual security of an entire empire is built. Though your life is cloistered, you are not entirely cut off from the world outside the atrium's walls. On certain festival days and for specific public ceremonies, you are required to be seen. These glimpses of the outside world are filtered, strange, and disorienting experiences. You do not walk the streets as a citizen. You are carried through them like a sacred relic being transported from one shrine to another. Your mode of transport is the litter, a curtained couch carried on the shoulders of several strong male attendants. Peeking through a small gap in the heavy fabric curtains, you watch Rome scroll by like a chaotic, painted frieze. It is a city of overwhelming sensory input. The noise is the first thing that hits you, a constant, deafening roar composed of 1,000 individual sounds. The rumble of cart wheels on the uneven basalt paving stones, the sharp commands of charioteers, the endless shouting of merchants hawking their wares, the cries of beggars, the laughter and arguments spilling from open-air taverns. It all merges into a single, formidable wall of sound. Then there is the smell. The city air, which you only ever breathe on these brief excursions, is a potent cocktail. You can pick out individual scents: the sharp, savory aroma of roasting meat from a street-side stall, the sweet perfume of expensive incense wafting from a temple, the floral scent of garlands being sold for offerings. But beneath it all is the pervasive, inescapable stench of life in a metropolis with no modern sanitation. The reek of garbage piled in alleyways, the ammonia tang of animal waste from the beasts of burden, and the sour smell of the overflowing sewers all combine into a miasma that clings to the back of your throat. Your pristine, incense-scented world within the atrium could not be more different. You see the people, a sea of faces. The wealthy in their fine, brightly colored tunics, striding with purpose, and the poor in their threadbare, grimy rags, huddling in doorways. You see soldiers marching in formation, their armor gleaming and slaves shuffling in chains, their eyes downcast. You see a level of poverty and desperation that has been entirely shielded from you. It's a harsh reminder of the realities of the empire you serve, a world far removed from the serene order of your religious life. There are no Yelp reviews for the questionable street food you see people eating. No way to know if the tavern stew is as dubious as it looks. There is only the raw, unfiltered spectacle of human existence in all its messy glory. Your presence causes a stir wherever you go. As your litter approaches, preceded by the lictor who calls for people to make way, the chaos momentarily subsides. The roar of the crowd softens to a respectful murmur. People stop what they are doing. They press themselves against buildings to let you pass, their heads bowed. Some may point, whispering your title to their children. To them, you are a living omen, a manifestation of the divine. A glimpse of your white robes through the curtains is a blessing. You are a celebrity, but a celebrity of the most remote and untouchable kind. One of the most important public events you attend is the Lupercalia, a wild and ancient fertility festival held in February. It is a chaotic, almost savage affair, where young men of aristocratic families run a course through the city, naked or nearly so, striking women they encounter with strips of goat hide. It is believed that being struck by these whips would grant fertility and ease the pains of childbirth. Your role is to be a spectator, seated in your place of honor. Your serene and disciplined presents a stark contrast to the ecstatic frenzy unfolding below. You are the anchor of official state piety in a sea of primal folk tradition. These excursions are a profound culture shock. They reinforce your separation from society. You are in the world but not of it. The brief, Overwhelming immersions into the city's chaos make the return to the atrium's quiet, ordered halls feel like a genuine relief. The silence that once felt oppressive now feels like a sanctuary. The simple, clean scents of incense and polished stone are a comfort after the assault on your senses from the streets. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. Your public appearances serve a vital purpose. They are a physical demonstration of the state's devotion. By participating in these rituals, you are reaffirming the pact between Rome and its gods. You are showing the people that even amidst the chaos of daily life, the sacred order is being maintained. You are a living, breathing symbol of stability. But for you, the individual woman inside the litter, these journeys are a strange and bittersweet taste of a life you will never lead. You get to see the vibrant, chaotic, striving world that your service protects, but you can never truly be a part of it. The curtains of your litter are more than just fabric. They are a tangible barrier between your world and theirs, a constant reminder of the sacred, lonely path you are destined to walk. Each trip outside is a renewal of your vows, a reminder of exactly what you have sacrificed, and for what purpose. Your world may be small, confined to the elegant cloisters of the Atrium Vestae, but it is not empty. You share this gilded cage with 5 other women, your sister priestesses. For 30 years, this small, insular group is your family, your colleagues, your rivals, and your only confidants. Navigating the complex social dynamics of this enclosed community is one of the most challenging and essential aspects of your life. There are no team-building exercises or HR department to mediate disputes. You must find a way to coexist in a high-pressure environment where every action is scrutinized. The 6 Vestals are divided by age and experience. There are typically 2 novices in their first decade of training, 2 active priestesses in their second decade, and 2 senior members in their final 10 years of service. This creates a natural hierarchy. As a full priestess in your second decade, you are no longer the wide-eyed, terrified child. You are now responsible for helping to guide the younger novices, just as you were once guided. You must teach them the hymns, correct their mistakes in rituals, and model the serene deportment expected of a Vestal. This role as a mentor creates a specific kind of bond. You see in the novices' faces the same fear and confusion you once felt. You remember the sting of loneliness, the overwhelming weight of the sacred texts. A quiet word of encouragement, a patient demonstration of a difficult weaving technique, a shared, understanding glance when the chief Vestal seems particularly stern. These small acts of kindness are lifelines. You become a source of stability for them, an example that it is possible to survive and even thrive in this strange world. Your relationship with the other full priestess, the woman who is your contemporary, is more complex. You are peers, sharing the same heavy burden of responsibility. You stand watch together over the sacred flame in the dead of night, the shared duty forging a powerful, unspoken connection. In those silent hours, with only the soft flicker of the flame for company, you are partners in the most profound sense. You rely on each other completely. A sleepy nod, a subtle gesture to indicate the oil is low. Your communication becomes a shorthand born of shared purpose. But this closeness is not without its undercurrents of rivalry. There is only one chief Vestal, the Virgo Vestalis Maxima. This position of ultimate authority is not elected, it is determined by seniority. But throughout your 30 years, there are subtle competitions for prestige and respect. Who is more devout? Whose knowledge of the rituals is more precise? Who is more trusted by the Pontifex Maximus? The pressure to be perfect is not just about appeasing the goddess. It is also about your standing within the small, intense world of the atrium. A minor mistake that might go unnoticed by the outside world is glaringly obvious to the 5 other women who know the rituals as well as you do. Friendships do form, of course. It is human nature. In the quiet moments between duties, perhaps while weaving or grinding flour, conversations can stray into more personal territory, though always cautiously. You might share a memory of your childhood, a fragment of the life you left behind. You learn the personalities of your sisters. One might have a dry, subtle wit that only emerges in rare moments of privacy. Another might possess a deep, quiet empathy. A third might have a sharp, intellectual mind that enjoys debating obscure points of religious law. These bonds are your salvation. They are the only real human connections you have. Your sister Vestals are the only people on earth who can understand the strange paradox of your life, the immense privilege and the profound sacrifice. They know the weight of the vow of chastity, the terror of watching the flame, the loneliness of being a living symbol. This shared experience creates a bond deeper than friendship, a form of sisterhood forged in a crucible of sacred duty. However, this intimacy is also a source of danger. A disagreement, a moment of jealousy, a perceived slight. In such a closed environment, these small conflicts can fester and grow, with no release and no escape. A whisper from a disgruntled sister to the chief Vestal, or worse, to the Pontifex Maximus, could have serious repercussions. You learn to be guarded, to choose your words carefully, to maintain a serene and unimpeachable exterior. You must trust your sisters because you have no one else, but you can never afford to trust them completely. This constant, low-level tension is one of the most draining aspects of your life. Scholars can only reconstruct the physical space of the atrium from its ruins, but the emotional architecture of the community remains a subject of speculation. It was a world of women, governed by women, for the service of a female deity. It was a pocket of female autonomy and power within a deeply patriarchal society. But it was also a pressure cooker, a place where 6 lives were intertwined in a complex dance of cooperation, mentorship, rivalry, and friendship. Learning the steps of this dance was just as crucial to your survival as memorizing the sacred hymns. Your life depended on the flame, but your sanity depended on the fragile, complicated peace you could forge with the 5 other women who shared your extraordinary fate. As you progress through your years of service, the initial terror of your responsibilities does not fade, but it changes. It transforms from the sharp panic of a novice into a chronic, low-grade anxiety, a constant hum beneath the surface of your daily rituals. The pressure to be perfect is relentless, because you understand with ever-increasing clarity that a mistake is never just a mistake. In the hypersymbolic world you inhabit, any error, no matter how small, can be interpreted as a prodigium, a terrifying omen, a sign of divine displeasure that threatens the entire state. Imagine you are on watch, tending the sacred flame. Your mind, weary from a long day of duties, wanders for just a fraction of a second. In that moment, a draft from an unseen crack in the temple wall causes the flame to gutter violently, shrinking to a tiny blue speck before catching again. Your heart leaps into your throat. No one else saw it. The flame did not go out. You quickly and calmly check for the source of the draft, your hands moving with practiced efficiency. But for the rest of your watch and for days after, you are haunted by the incident. Was it just a random draft? Or was it a sign? Did Vesta flicker her gaze away from Rome for a moment? And was it because of your fleeting inattention? This is the psychological burden you carry. You are living in a world where there are no coincidences. A dropped ritual implement, a misspoken word in a long prayer, a trip on the temple steps. These are not clumsy accidents. They are potential cracks in the sacred armor of Rome. Your personal perfection is a state utility, and your flaws are a public liability. This creates a state of hypervigilance. You are constantly monitoring yourself, your thoughts, your actions, searching for any imperfection that could bring disaster. The scrutiny comes not only from within, but from without. The Pontifex Maximus and the other priests of the College of Pontiffs are the interpreters of divine will. It is their job to watch for and interpret omens. If a plague sweeps through the city, if a harvest fails, if a Roman army is defeated in battle, the priests will look for a cause. And one of the first places they will look is to you and your sisters. Has there been a lapse in the rituals? Has a Vestal been negligent in her duties? Has one of you, in some hidden way, broken your vow of purity? The shadow of this collective responsibility hangs over the atrium. If the state is suffering, the atmosphere within your home becomes thick with tension and fear. You and your sisters become even more meticulous, even more devout, your prayers more fervent. You eye each other with a new layer of suspicion. Is someone among you the cause of the gods' anger? The strong bonds of sisterhood can fray under this kind of pressure, as the instinct for self-preservation battles with the duty of communal solidarity. This concept of transgression is not about modern ideas of sin or personal morality. It is about a disruption of the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods. This peace is a transactional relationship. Rome honors the gods with correct and continuous ritual, and in return, the gods provide protection and prosperity. A Vestal's mistake, therefore, is a breach of contract, an act that endangers the entire community. It is a terrifyingly public form of failure. Even your dreams are not a safe refuge. A troubling dream could be interpreted as a divine message, a warning that you must report to the chief Vestal or the Pontifex Maximus for interpretation. There is no private, interior space that is truly your own. Your very subconscious is considered a potential conduit for state-relevant prophecies. This immense pressure to be a flawless vessel for the divine is perhaps the most draining aspect of your 30-year service. It's one thing to avoid major, obvious transgressions like letting the fire go out or breaking your vow of chastity. It's another thing entirely to live every second of your life with the knowledge that a tiny, unintentional slip-up could be construed as a catastrophe. There is no such thing as good enough. The standard is absolute perfection, and the stakes are the continued existence of Rome itself. You learn to live with this pressure, to build a kind of spiritual armor around your heart. You channel the fear into focus, the anxiety into meticulousness. You find a strange comfort in the rigidity of the rituals, because their precise execution is your only defense against chaos. You repeat the ancient hymns, your lips forming the words perfectly, not just out of devotion, but as a shield. Each correct gesture, each fulfilled duty, is another stone placed in the wall that holds disaster at bay. But you are always aware that you are the wall, and that even the strongest wall can develop a crack. The shadow of transgression is your constant companion, a silent, ever-present reminder of the impossibly high standard you are sworn to uphold. Of all the transgressions a Vestal could commit, one stood alone in its horror, a crime so profound it demanded a punishment of unique and terrifying cruelty. This was the breaking of the sacred vow of chastity. The crimen incesti, or crime of unchastity, was not seen as a private moral failing. It was a monstrous pollution, a spiritual cataclysm that severed the connection between Rome and its divine protector, Vesta. It was believed to poison the very ground of the city and invite divine wrath in the form of plague, famine, or military defeat. The punishment for such a crime had to be equally monumental, a ritual of purification designed to expunge the stain and appease the enraged goddess. You learn about this punishment in horrifying, clinical detail from the senior Vestals. It is not told as a ghost story to frighten children. It is presented as a solemn point of religious law, a consequence as real and unchangeable as the rising of the sun. The fate of a Vestal found guilty of incestum is to be buried alive. The process is a slow, methodical, public horror. Once the College of Pontiffs, led by the Pontifex Maximus, has judged the Vestal guilty, a day is set for the sentence to be carried out. On that day, the guilty priestess is stripped of her sacred headband and other insignia of her office. She is dressed in funeral clothes. She is then placed in a closed litter, bound and gagged, so that her profane cries cannot pollute the sacred air of the city as she is carried through the streets. The procession is a somber, silent affair. The entire city seems to hold its breath. The litter is carried through the forum, past the temple she once served, to a place just inside the city walls called the Campus Celeratus, the polluted field. Here, a small underground chamber has been prepared. It is not a grave, not exactly. It is a tiny room just large enough for a person to survive for a very short time. Inside, the executioners have placed a small couch, a lamp, and a meager portion of food and water, a loaf of bread, a flask of water, a little milk and oil. This bizarre provision is a crucial, chilling piece of legal and religious sophistry. The person of a Vestal is sacrosanct. It is forbidden to spill her blood or to do her violence. By providing these small tokens of life, the state can claim that it is not actively killing her. She is not being executed. She is being sealed away, abandoned to the judgment of the goddess in the earth. Her death from starvation or suffocation in the dark, silent tomb is technically at her own hand, or at the hand of the divine. It is a neat, terrifying loophole that allows the state to kill its most sacred priestess without technically committing sacrilege. The Pontifex Maximus, his face veiled, recites a final, terrible prayer, dedicating the condemned woman to the underworld. Then, the Vestal is unbound and forced to descend a ladder into the underground chamber. The ladder is drawn up. The executioners, averting their eyes, quickly fill the entrance with earth, sealing her inside. They mound the dirt over the top, erasing any sign of the entrance, until the field is once again level and bare. The fate of the man who had been her partner in the crime is more straightforward, but no less brutal. He is taken to the public forum, stripped naked, and flogged to death by the priests in full public view. His death is a simple, violent spectacle. Hers is a quiet, lingering, psychological terror. The knowledge of this punishment lives within you. It is the ultimate deterrent, the dark foundation upon which the entire edifice of your sacred duty is built. Every time you feel a pang of loneliness, every time a handsome senator's gaze lingers a moment too long, every time you dream of a life of love and family, the image of that small, dark room in the polluted field rises in your mind. You think of the absolute silence, the feel of the damp earth walls, the single lamp casting a feeble glow until its oil runs out, the taste of that last piece of bread, the utter, soul-crushing despair of being abandoned by gods and men, left to die alone in the dark. How long would it take? Would you scream until your voice was gone? Would you fall into a resigned silence? Would you pray to the very goddess who had abandoned you? Historians confirm that this was not just an empty threat. While rare, there are several recorded instances of Vestals being executed in this manner over Rome's long history. Each one would have been a traumatic event for the entire city, and especially for the other Vestals. To know that one of your sisters, someone you lived with and worked with, had met this end would be an unimaginable horror. It would reinforce the terrifying precariousness of your own position. This ultimate punishment is the starkest expression of your life's central paradox. You are the most revered woman in Rome, but you are also the most vulnerable. Your sacredness is a shield that protects you from the world, but it is also a fragile vessel that, if broken, condemns you to a fate worse than any common criminal's. You are perched on a razor's edge between deification and damnation, and the balancing act is the work of every single day. Your 30 years of service are not a monolithic block of time. They are structured by tradition into 3 distinct acts, a decade for each. This progression provides a clear and steady path for your life, marking your journey from a frightened child to a powerful priestess and finally to a respected elder. Each decade has its own focus, its own set of responsibilities, and its own unique psychological challenges. You do not remain the same person throughout your service. You are constantly evolving within the rigid framework of your role. The first 10 years, as you remember with a faint, phantom ache in your muscles, are dedicated to learning. You are a discipula, a student. This is the period of intense memorization, of physical labor, of being constantly corrected and molded. It is a decade of humility and obedience, where your individual will is systematically broken down and rebuilt according to the needs of the institution. You are the apprentice, learning the craft of holiness from the masters. Looking back, you can see how essential this grueling foundation was. Without that decade of absolute immersion, you could never have hoped to perform the complex duties that followed. It was a time of investment, a long, slow pouring of knowledge and tradition into the empty vessel you had become. The second decade is the heart of your service. You are now a full and active priestess. The focus shifts from learning to doing. You are no longer just a student of the rites. You are the one performing them. This is the decade where you take your regular turn on the watch, tending the eternal flame. The full weight of responsibility settles upon you. You are at the peak of your physical and mental abilities, your knowledge of the rituals now second nature. It is a time of immense pressure, but also of great purpose. You are a guardian of Rome, actively participating in the spiritual life of the empire. This is the period when you are most visible, most vital to the daily functioning of the priesthood. The privileges of your office, the lictor, the right of way, the seats of honor, are most relevant during these 10 years. It is the decade of practice, of putting into motion everything you have learned. The third and final decade brings another shift in your role. You are now a senior priestess, a magistra or teacher. Your primary responsibility is no longer the hour-to-hour maintenance of the flame, though you still participate. Your main focus is now on the next generation. You become the mentor, the stern but patient teacher that you once feared and respected. You are the living repository of the Order's traditions, and it is your duty to pass that knowledge on to the new novices. You look at the small, 6 or 7-year-old girls brought weeping into the atrium, and you see yourself. You remember the terror, the confusion, the profound sense of loss. This memory gives you a capacity for empathy that the stricter, older mentors of your own youth may have lacked. You guide them through the archaic hymns. You show them how to properly clean the sacred vessels, and you teach them the immense significance of their new lives. You are the bridge between the past and the future of the Order. This role is less physically demanding, but carries its own weight. The continuity of this ancient priesthood rests on your shoulders, on your ability to successfully train your replacements. This 3-act structure provides a sense of progression and purpose to what could otherwise feel like an endless sentence. You are not stuck in one role forever. You are moving through a clearly defined career path, with increasing levels of seniority and responsibility. Historians often marvel at the psychological resilience this structure must have provided. It gave the Vestals a narrative for their lives, a way to measure their progress and find meaning in their long years of service. As you enter your final years, your perspective shifts again. You are now one of the elder stateswomen of the Roman religious world. Your opinion carries immense weight within the atrium. You are consulted by the Pontifex Maximus on obscure points of ritual law. Your presence is a calming, stabilizing force within the community. The frantic anxieties of your middle years have softened into a deep, quiet understanding of your role. You have seen novices come and go. You have stood watch over the flame through seasons of plague and seasons of prosperity. You have felt the pulse of the city from your strange, sacred remove for nearly 3 decades. This final act is one of mastery and legacy. You are no longer just practicing your faith, you are embodying it. You are a living testament to the endurance of the tradition. The structure of your life, once a cage, has become a scaffold that has allowed you to grow into a figure of immense dignity and wisdom. You have completed the journey from unwilling student to active guardian to revered master. You have played all 3 parts in the sacred drama of Vesta, and the final curtain on your 30 years of service is now beginning to draw near. In your 3rd decade of service, as you become a senior member of the priesthood, you begin to wield a form of influence that is more subtle, yet in some ways more potent than the formal powers of a magistrate or a general. You become a guardian not just of the sacred flame, but of the state's most sensitive secrets. The Atrium Vestae, your home, is the ultimate safe deposit box of ancient Rome, and you are its trusted keepers. The practice of entrusting important documents to your care stems from the inviolable sanctity of your person and your home. No thief, no political rival, no rebellious soldier would dare to force their way into the house of the Vestals. To do so would be an act of sacrilege so profound it would be considered an attack on the gods themselves, inviting immediate and catastrophic divine retribution. This sacred status makes your cloister the most secure location in a city awash with conspiracy, ambition, and political violence. Powerful men of Rome, senators, consuls, triumphant generals, and even the emperor himself, come to you seeking this unique security. They arrive not with the swagger of authority they display in the Senate House, but with a quiet, almost deferential respect. They bring with them their last will and testament, documents that contain the future of their entire family line, the distribution of vast fortunes in land, property, and gold. In a world where a sudden illness or a shift in political winds could mean ruin, securing one's legacy is of paramount importance. They hand you the sealed tablets or scrolls, and in doing so, they place their entire worldly legacy into your hands. You also become the custodian of important state treaties. When Rome makes an alliance with a foreign king or concludes a peace treaty after a long war, the official documents are often stored with you. This ensures they cannot be stolen or altered by factions who may have opposed the agreement. You hold the very words that bind nations, the ink and parchment that prevent armies from marching. The presence of these documents gives you a unique, if passive, insight into the inner workings of the empire. You do not read the wills or the treaties. Your duty is to guard them, not to know their contents. But you see who comes and goes. You see the worried frown on a senator's face as he entrusts his will to you, and you hear the whispers in the city that he has fallen out of favor with the emperor. You see a delegation of foreign ambassadors leave the atrium with relieved expressions, and you know a major international agreement has been secured. You are the silent witness to the ebb and flow of power. You are not a political player in the traditional sense. You do not debate in the forum or command legions, but you are the fulcrum around which much of the city's high-level business pivots. Your power is quiet, indirect, but absolute in its own domain. There is no modern equivalent. It's as if the National Archives, the Supreme Court vault, and a Swiss bank were all housed in a convent and run by its most senior nuns. This role as guardians of secrets reinforces your unique position in Roman society. You are perceived as being above the political fray, incorruptible and impartial. Your loyalty is not to a specific man or a political party, but to the Roman state and its gods. This neutrality is the very source of your power. People trust you precisely because you are removed from their world of ambition and greed. We can only speculate about the subtle influence you might wield. Perhaps a powerful man on the cusp of making a dangerous political move hesitates when he remembers that his will, and thus the fate of his children, is held in your hands. Perhaps the knowledge that the Vestals are the unimpeachable witnesses to so many agreements makes men more likely to honor them. Your influence is not active, but it is pervasive, a silent pressure for stability and order in a turbulent world. This responsibility adds another layer to the weight you carry. You are guarding not only the spiritual heart of Rome, but also its legal and political memory. The scrolls and tablets stored in the strong rooms of the Atrium are a tangible representation of the trust the entire Roman world places in you. A fire in the Atrium would be a catastrophe not just for the loss of religious items, but for the potential loss of a century of Rome's most important legal documents. As you enter the final years of your service, you are more than just a priestess. You are a pillar of the Roman establishment. You have the respect of the most powerful men in the world, not because of wealth or military might, but because of your unwavering integrity and the sacred power you represent. You are the quiet, unassuming woman in white who holds the keys to the empire's secrets, a power behind the throne that is all the more effective for being silent and unseen. The day you have been anticipating for 30 years finally arrives. It is the end of your term of service. You are now somewhere around the age of 37, a woman in the prime of her life by Roman standards, and you are, for the first time since you were a small child, free. The chains of duty which have been your entire world, the very structure of your existence, fall away. The feeling is not one of simple, joyous release, but of profound and terrifying disorientation. The formal end of your service is marked by a simple ceremony. You are ritually discharged from your vows by the Pontifex Maximus, the same office, if not the same man, that bound you to this life 3 decades ago. You are now ex Virgo, a former Vestal. Your sacred status is removed. You are once again an ordinary citizen, albeit one of immense wealth and prestige. The first and most immediate change is your clothing. You take off the severe white robes and the complex, restrictive hairstyle of the Sine Crines. For the first time in 30 years, you are allowed to wear the colorful garments of a Roman matron, to arrange your hair in a fashionable style, to wear jewelry. This simple act of changing your clothes feels like shedding a skin. You look at your reflection and see a stranger, a woman you do not know, a face that is no longer an icon but just a face. You are now free to leave the Atrium Vestae. You can walk out of the gates that have been your entire world, no longer shielded by curtains or preceded by a lictor. You can step into the chaotic, noisy, vibrant streets of Rome as a private individual. The city that you have only ever glimpsed in filtered, formal excursions is now yours to navigate. The sheer sensory overload is dizzying. The smells, the sounds, the crush of the crowd. It is all overwhelming. You have spent your life in a world of quiet order, and now you are thrust into a world of vibrant chaos. The most significant freedom you now possess is the freedom to marry. For 30 years, this was the ultimate taboo, a crime punishable by a horrific death. Now, it is not only a possibility, but, for many, an expectation. As a former Vestal, you are considered a highly prestigious match. You are from a good family. You are known for your unimpeachable character and discipline, and you are independently wealthy. To marry, a former Vestal brings great honor to a man's family. Suitors, likely arranged by your family who have now re-entered your life, will come forward. This prospect is both alluring and deeply frightening. You have spent your entire adult life in a community of women, with almost no informal contact with men. You know nothing of the intimacies of marriage, of running a household, of raising children. These are skills that other Roman women have been learning since they were young girls. You learn to chant ancient hymns and guard a sacred flame. They learned to manage slaves, entertain their husbands' political allies, and raise sons to be Roman citizens. You are a novice all over again, but this time, the subject is not religion, but life itself. The world has changed in the 30 years you have been cloistered. The political landscape is different. The city itself has new buildings, new faces. Your own family is a collection of strangers. Your parents, if they are still alive, are now elderly. Your little brother, who you remember as a small boy with a bright laugh, is a middle-aged man with a wife and children of his own. These nieces and nephews are your closest blood relatives, but you do not know them. Reconnecting with this family is an awkward, emotional process, a negotiation between the memory of a 6-year-old girl and the reality of a 37-year-old woman who has lived an extraordinary and isolating life. Some former Vestals did choose to marry, and by all accounts many were successful. But it was a difficult transition, a complete reinvention of the self. Others chose a different path. Your legal and financial autonomy means you do not have to marry. You could choose to live independently, a wealthy and respected woman managing her own affairs. This was a rare privilege for a woman in Roman society. You could establish your own household, take a prominent role in the social life of the city, and enjoy a level of freedom that few other women could dream of. The choice is yours, and it is a monumental one. Do you embrace the traditional Roman path for a woman of your class and become a wife and mother, learning a new set of duties and a new way of life? Or do you forge your own path, using the unique independence your service has granted you to live a life of your own design? The 30 years of service are over, but their mark on you is indelible. You have a discipline, a seriousness, and a perspective on the world that sets you apart. You are no longer a sacred object, but you will always be a figure of immense respect. As you stand on the threshold of this new life, looking out at a world that is both familiar and utterly alien. You are faced with a freedom that is as daunting as any duty you have ever performed. Your service to Vesta is complete. Your service to yourself is just beginning. You stand at a crossroads, a place you have not been since you were a child. For 30 years, your path was a straight, narrow, and clearly marked road. Now it splinters into multiple, unknowable futures, and you must choose which one to walk. The weight of this choice is heavier, in some ways, than the weight of the sacred water jar you once carried. That was a burden of duty. This is the burden of freedom. Do you get married? The idea is a complex tapestry of desire and fear. A part of you, the part that has been suppressed for 3 decades, longs for the human connection you have been denied. The thought of a partner, of shared intimacy, of children who would carry on your name. It is the life you were born for, the life that was stolen from you. To reclaim it would be a triumph, a final act of rejoining the human race. You imagine a home filled not with the hushed reverence of a temple, but with the messy, vibrant sounds of a family. It is a powerful, seductive vision, but the fear is just as strong. You are a 37-year-old woman who knows more about the will of the gods than the workings of a human heart. How could you possibly be a wife to a man whose world of politics, business, and war is completely alien to you? How could you be a mother when your only experience with children has been as a stern teacher to other consecrated girls? The role of a Roman matron is a complex and demanding one, and you would be starting with a profound disadvantage. Your potential husband would not be marrying a woman. He would be marrying a legend, and the reality of your inexperience might be a disappointment he is not prepared for. Or do you choose independence? This path is less trodden, but perhaps more true to the woman you have become. You are wealthy. You are respected. You are legally autonomous. You could purchase a house of your own, manage your own estates, and live as a powerful and influential figure in your own right. You could become a patron of the arts, a benefactor to your family, a quiet force in the social fabric of Rome. This life would offer a continuation of the dignity and self-sufficiency you have grown accustomed to, but without the vows and restrictions. It would be a life of quiet power, beholden to no one. Yet this path has its own loneliness. You would be an anomaly, a woman living outside the traditional structures of family and marriage. While respected, you would also be an object of curiosity, perhaps even suspicion. Would you spend your final decades in a different kind of isolation, trading the cloister of the atrium for the cloister of your own independence? Historians debate what most former Vestals chose. The fragmentary evidence suggests that many, perhaps even most, chose not to marry. They had lived for 30 years in a position of unique authority and self-reliance, and the prospect of submitting to the authority of a husband, as was expected of a Roman wife, may have seemed like a step backward. They had run a divine household. Managing a mortal one might have felt like a demotion. You spend your first few weeks of freedom in a daze, living with your brother's family, observing their lives with the detached curiosity of an anthropologist. You watch his wife manage their home with an easy, practiced authority that you both admire and find intimidating. You see the casual affection between them, the squabbles and the laughter, and it feels like watching a play in a foreign language. One evening, your brother speaks with you alone in the quiet of the garden. He is a kind man, his face etched with the worries of a Roman citizen, but his eyes still hold a glimmer of the boy you remember. He asks you what you will do. He tells you of a suitor, a respectable senator of good standing, a widower who is looking for a wife to bring honor to his house. The offer is there. The path is open. You look around the garden at the familiar Roman plants, the scent of jasmine heavy in the evening air. For the first time, you realize the choice is not just about marriage versus independence. It is about who you are now. Are you the girl who was taken, finally returned to her proper place? Or are you the priestess who served, a woman forged into something new and different by 3 decades of fire and faith? You do not have an answer yet. The future is a blank wax tablet and your hand holds the stylus. For a lifetime, every word, every gesture, every day was written for you. Now you must write your own story. The prospect is terrifying, but as you look up at the stars beginning to appear in the Roman sky, the same stars you watched over during countless nights on guard, you feel a flicker of something you have not felt before. Not duty, not fear, not even freedom. It is anticipation. The unknowable future is not a void to be feared, but a space to be filled. And for the first time, you are the one who gets to fill it. The discipline, the resilience, the quiet strength that were hammered into you in the service of the goddess are not gone. They are your inheritance. They are the tools you will use to build your new life, whatever shape it may take. You survived the gilded cage. You will surely survive the world outside it. The story of your life as a Vestal fades now, like the last light of an oil lamp. The choice you face is left to the quiet of your own mind as you drift deeper into sleep. This journey through a life of stark contrasts, of immense power and profound confinement, of public reverence and private loneliness, reminds us of the intricate, often harsh structures that shape human lives. The Vestals in their white robes were not just symbols. They were women, bound to an extraordinary fate who found ways to endure, to wield influence, and to maintain the spiritual heart of an empire. Their resilience is a quiet testament to the human capacity to adapt to even the most demanding of circumstances. As you settle into the comfort of your own bed, in your own safe and private world, appreciate the simple freedom of your own choices. Let the sounds of your own time be a soothing balm. There is no sacred fire for you to tend, no vows to keep, no terrifying punishments to fear. There is only the gentle call of rest. Let the silence of that ancient, underground chamber be replaced by the peaceful quiet of your own room. Let the worries of the day dissolve, and allow yourself to drift into a deep and untroubled sleep. The watch is over. You can rest now.